Hi, my name is Andy VanZandt, and I'm a professional board game developer. And today I'm going to talk about some common misconceptions about box inserts and production decisions that you can make to help mitigate the issues that arise from those. So the first thing to note is that most box inserts are designed to reduce box rattle and protect components during shipping, and only a small percentage are designed for storage of components after the fact. The issue is that consumers have this misconception that the primary purpose is the storage and don't know or don't care about the other two things. So they'll get the box home, they'll open everything up, they'll punch the punch boards, they'll organize the components, they'll try and put stuff back in, they'll be like, oh, these guys are idiots, they don't know what they're doing, and throw out the insert. And you don't care about them throwing out the insert, even though people on forums will often feel like that's the greatest condemnation of the insert ever is that they threw it out. You don't care about that. You care about them saying that you didn't know what you were doing. So, uh, what can you do to offset that? So, like I said, the primary purpose is to reduce box rattle and to prevent damage. Box rattle is when a consumer picks up the product and something moves from one end of the box to the other, and it sounds very loose, and it sounds to the consumer subconsciously like they're purchasing a bunch of air, and they devalue the product as a result. It also sounds kind of like a broken machine, and both of those things are negative. And so you're instead having the components trying to be held basically in one place inside the box to prevent that box rattle. Protecting components during shipping is accomplished basically the same way. You hold stuff in one place so that it doesn't bang around into each other. Um, so we've got two primary kinds of inserts. We've got risers, which are only really trying to do the first two things, the protecting during shipping and preventing box rattle. And we've got inserts that are also designed for storage, which are usually the vacuum form inserts. Sometimes they're foam or very nice cardboard ones, but usually vacuum form. Uh, so, what can you do with a riser to help prevent people from saying, hey, you made a bad choice here? So, a riser usually has one or two wells in it, which is the cavities in which stuff goes. And sometimes it has more, but one or two wells is the norm. Uh, the easiest thing you can do is have a single well because that is perceived more like a box liner than a storage insert, and it's kind of the exception. But if you open a lot of boxes, that's not what's in there. You'll see multi-well risers. The reasons you see multi-well risers is because somebody said, hey, just put a riser in and didn't specify what was going on. Uh, the way that you can use that more intelligently is the good reason to have multi-well risers is because you have two components that you need to keep separate from each other. So you need a hard wall in between them. So if you've got a heavy component like a brick of dice or metal coins, you don't want that slamming into your deck of cards. Similarly, you wouldn't want a deck of cards slamming into a fragile component like a small meeple or a plastic miniature with little fiddly bits on it. So you can have a multi-well riser for that purpose. When you do that, uh, what you're going to do is you're going to have one well, maybe two wells, specifically sized for a particular component. So, for example, tiles or cards. You might have a well specifically sized so that they can all fit in this one well, and everything else goes in the other. And that's the way you would phrase it to the manufacturer. I need a well this particular size and the other well sized for the rest of the components. And the reason you do that is because you can't storage and shipping are two different things, and so you need a well that is sized for the shipping, right? Uh, and that's just those things are enough to make your cardboard riser better than the vast majority of risers out there. You either have only one well, or if you need to have two wells, you size one side specifically and the other side for shipping. Um, keep in mind that when you're sizing a well specifically, if you have cards, it needs to accommodate card sleeves, or you have the exact same undesirable effect. The consumer will be like, "Oh, this doesn't fit sleeved. What were they thinking?" I threw it out. Uh, so it's really easy for a really positive effect, uh, and the positive effect is avoiding the negative feelings about the product. So the other kind of insert is ones designed for storage, and this is most commonly vacuform, can be foam or something else. But so the biggest issues with a vacuform insert is that a lot of times they'll size the well that a specific component goes in because it's usually designed for very specific components. Um, they size it exactly for that component, and usually they need it to be deeper than the component. So if you've got a deck of cards and it's sitting in this well that's exactly sized for it, it looks all nice and pretty. And then they go to store the thing on the shelf sideways and the cards slide out and go everywhere. And suddenly you've got the same issue as before. Uh, so easy to solve, make the well a little deeper, or if you have the budget to do so, have a lid that goes on top of the insert that dips slightly into the insert, and that'll prevent stuff from moving around. The other big problems with those vacuum inserts are sometimes people cheap out and say, I want a vacuum insert, but I only want the cheapest one, and don't pay attention to what components are being put into it, and then the component damages the insert. Uh, and on top of that, sometimes people make inserts that it's hard to get the thing out of. And all it takes is paying attention to those things. If you've got something that's particularly heavy, don't go with the cheapest plastic. If you have any component, think about how you're going to lift that component out. Um, so there are vacuum, and I'm talking about vacuum form inserts like that. They only exist in this specific kind. There's generic vacuum form inserts that just have some wells, and those are the ones you'll see more often that'll have like 4 or 5 wells, but they have nothing to do with the particular contents. They're just kind of subdividing the box, and everything I said about cardboard risers, apply that to those generic vacuum form inserts. They if they're not doing uh, what they need to do, it would have been better off as a single well riser than a vacuum form insert. Even if you've already paid for the mold for the vacuum form, if somebody is going to have this negative perception of the product as a result, you are better off not using the insert in that way. So the last thing I'll touch on is air inside boxes. And I talked about stuff moving back and forth and preventing box rattle because people don't like air inside boxes. And you'll see pictures online, I'm sure, of somebody who's taken the insert out of a Splendor box and put all the components in a corner and has said, "Look at this air that I bought," and that's not a reasonable evaluation, and it's not something that should affect your choices. Uh, it shouldn't affect your choices for a couple of reasons. Um, so, first off, there are two important points where the consumer is evaluating the product. Um, when it's on the shelf, after they get it home. When it's on a shelf, they have no idea how much air is in it. What they're really evaluating on is the presentation of the box and the weight of the box, because there's another subconscious evaluation when they pick up a box. The price versus weight is something their mind will attribute a value to. And so you have to be careful to not have too big of a box with too light of a contents. Even if the price is commensurate, it doesn't matter if the box feels too light. They will mentally devalue everything about it. Uh, so when they get the product home, they're going to open it up, and maybe they'll be like, "Oh, look at all this air," and they'll have this brief period of feeling like something's wrong. But uh, they're still probably going to play the game, and after they play the game, none of that air stuff matters. What matters is the gameplay. So you're going to make the right choices for this point of contact, and then after they play the game. And you can't worry about the air because otherwise you'll be messing up the other things. On top of that, if you're worried about air and you make this box very neatly compact for all the things that are inside, you're going to have people complaining about not being able to fit things back and trying to figure it out, and they couldn't do it. And you're going to have people complaining that they sleeved the cards and it didn't fit. And you're going to have people complaining that they bought the expansion and they can't fit the expansion in the main box. So you basically can't win either way there. You're going to have too much air, or it's not going to handle these alternate uses that people are going to do. So you can't worry about that. You have to worry about what's happening during shipping and on the shelf, and what's happening after the consumer has played the game. And those are really easy things to do. So that's all I got for you today. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you later.